top of his head. Come and listen to the words that he said. If you wasn't sure, well now you will know. It will be one of your favorite shows.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Haas Talks presented by Performance Electronics. We are currently in the Haas Talks studio located in Bob's Turn 5 at Port City Raceway. Hey, in our most recent episode, we had Amber Sawyer on the show, and it was a great interview. We barely got to scratch the surface, however. So I figured, hey, what better way to follow that one up than to have Scott Sawyer, her husband, on the show. So right after this break, we're going to talk with Scott about his racing career, where he's at now, and what he wanted to be whenever he grew up.
Performance Electronics, custom electronic solutions. From design to manufacturing, let us put your ideas in motion and become your company's full-service electronics manufacturing experts. Performance Electronics.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Haas Talks, and as I told you before, Scott Sawyer is on the show. Scott, thank you so much for taking time out of your extraordinary busy schedule to sit down and chit-chat. This one's been a long time coming for me. I'm almost fangirling.
Whatever. Yeah. I wanted to be on here for a while, so just...
You know, Sawyer, just that name alone has been around since racing, really, micros were almost invented, it feels like, you know?
Right. It's been a while.
Tell us a little bit about the history of the Sawyer name, because basically you're how old, 65, 66?
Yeah.
And you were born into it, so I mean.
Born into it. So, yeah, that's all I've ever known. My grandpa, built cars, garage back in the day when there was no home built,
right.
No factory built.
Everything was home built.
So, they were probably wrapping pipe around trees to build cars, back then. But, he built cars for his buddies. He built engines. We had a Sawyer single-cylinder engine. He machined all the parts for, made everything, and supported a lot of people at the racetrack. So,
and those motors were pretty popular too.
Yeah,
they were hitters, right?
Yeah, they were. They won a lot of races. I did a science fair project on one, and my dad, we cut it in half, and so
cool.
I did the fair about how everything works and the combustion engine, and we still have it on a board, and my dad's made a light out of one. So it was really cool, just that history of it all, So, they had that, and my uncle, and, everything I've never known was racing.
Right.
So my dad worked at a machine shop, and, finally him and John Pickle were really close, and he did machine work for John Pickle. And so John at the time, it was time to do something. That the sport was growing. People needed to be able to go buy parts.
Right.
So my dad he quit his job there, and my mom and dad opened, Sawyer Chassis. And so
wow,
it was Sawyer Manufacturing back then in Bartlesville. And
how many years ago was that? Do we have an estimated date?
I think it was 80-something on that part when he quit his job.
Right.
I'm horrible with numbers and dates.
The early 80s.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. So
that's a long time.
It's been a hot minute.
Wow. So you're born into the sport, and you're born going to races of some sort.
Yeah.
Can you recall like some of the early years of like going to the racetrack? Do you like recall like some of your first races, like where they were at?
Well, I just remember being drug everywhere. Like back then, you couldn't get into the pits. Kids couldn't.
Right.
So, I had to go sit in the stands with my mom, or if she went into the pits with somebody, we were just, as my wife said, she was a track brat.
Yeah.
I was too. You just, like, kids back then didn't have a choice. Wherever their parents went, that's where we went. So
and that's back in the NMMA days, right?
Yes.
And that's why you say you're dragged all over the place, because that was like
it was
the bee's knees, man. Right? Like you went everywhere. And everybody went everywhere. Yeah. It wasn't like, we're going to go here this weekend because so-and-so's going there.
Right.
You only had really that one option.
Right. It was a national, the National Modified Midget Association. And they traveled. They had regions, and they had national races, and you pretty much had to go. So that's all there was. And we traveled the country. I remember I just told a story today about riding in the back of a Chevy short wide in a camper all the way to California with my aunt. You know, we rode all the way out there to go race, pulling an open trailer. I mean, that's dating me a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, but those are good memories, you know, that I had with my family. And that's what's good about the sport really is, you know, if you really spend time with your family and you're all together, I mean,
right.
You're
going to have some of these memories,
right?
Whether they're good or bad, you know,
right.
the good usually outweigh the bad. Do you, the first time you ever got in a car was at how old? Like to race.
So
I mean, I know you're a little kid.
I remember I started racing when I was 10 and out at Creek County, I had to run a go-kart, and this thing was just a yard cart. I mean, it was nothing big, nothing fancy, and I was so excited. I remember we were out there in the front of the shop in Bartlesville, and my dad is rod checking this thing, you know, trying to make sure it runs, and it blows up. I mean, I was devastated.
Yeah.
So, you know, Dean Franklin worked for us back then, my dad, and, you know, I remember my grandpa just coming up and saying, you know, get that engine off there and weld up those cases. I'll be back. And he's gone for, I don't even know time back then,
right.
but, you know, whatever. But he came back with parts, and him and my dad and Dean, you know, put that thing back together, welded the cases up, and we went and raced.
Frankenstein it all back together and went racing.
I don't even know how I did, but that's the story I remember is the thing. You know, he's just rod checking the thing, and it explodes. And my first race, and
right.
What do you do?
So through the years racing with the NMMA and different things like that, what was like one of your key moments, like your aha moment where you're like, I got it figured out?
Oh, man.
And was there a specific track where you were like, this is my place, this is where I'm going, this is where I'm going to get the job done?
Man, I really felt so confident at Sweet Springs. I mean, I really liked that place. You know, I liked the people. And I won a lot of races there, you know. I mean, I've won here at Port a lot too, but Sweet Springs is what really stands out in my head. It's just good memories, you know. One time I don't know, I had a bad night, whatever, and started back of the B feature and won it of course, that's when we had 50 lappers and 100 lappers, and so burnt a ton of tires off, but started in the back of a 50 lap main and won it, and then come off the back of the 100 lap main and won it. And I mean, just so that was a pretty big deal, you know, back then. So and still remember those memories. They still mean a lot.
Right.
I think it's funny now because every time we go up there, we're good friends with the Hinks, and so we'll go up there to the score box, and my name's still up there as quick time track record up there, but I'm sure they don't keep track of it now anymore. So, but it's still up there. So
it's still cool.
Yeah.
Whenever you're going to these different tracks, now that you're a little bit older, not a whole lot older, with different mentality now, I mean, even whenever you know, things had evolved to the 600s or whatever, do you start flashing back to those memories and like playing through like, man, I wonder if I can outdo myself at this racetrack now? Or
yeah, I do, and I'm really bad about my expectations for myself are really high. And you know, when you think you have it figured out, that's the crazy thing about racing in this sport. You might think you have it figured out, and the racing gods really just keep you humble.
Yeah,
you know,
don't know
I mean,
nothing, buddy.
Yeah, guarantee. So, yeah, I mean, you go into a place, you always go into a place with high expectations. You want to win. You know what you've done there in the past, and you know you want to duplicate that, or you want to outdo yourself, and sometimes it just doesn't work out. But
growing up early in racing, were there ever like any expectations of you from mom and dad or from grandpa or from any of the family members? I mean, you're a Sawyer. You're a Sawyer boy.
Right.
You
Absolutely not. I mean, my parents were always great. Like they never put any pressure on me. I mean, they were proud of anything I did, you know. I don't remember any memories of, you know, being told you have to do this or you know, but I did put a lot of pressure on myself as far as, you know, you got to win races. You know, you got to win races to sell cars. You got to win races to have people remember who you are. You know,
Right.
nobody remembers second.
Right.
You know, so I've done that all on myself, and I've really been bad about that. But I've tried really hard to not put that pressure on my kids, because I know,
Right.
it turns into a job.
Yeah.
You know, where it's just not as fun as it used to be, because you feel like you have to win, you have to perform, you know. And so, but my parents, no, they were great. They always, it doesn't matter. I remember I tore up a lot of stuff. I mean, here, every week it was just, crash after crash. And I remember my dad, he never would yell at me, never anything bad or derogatory. It was just, we'll fix it. As long as
Yeah.
I was in that shop working on it and, trying, we would fix it and we'd get it done.
Now, growing up, I mean, was there ever like a question from you as like, did you do anything else other than racing? Like, were you into sports or anything like that? Or was it like, man, I'm a racer. Like, this is what I want to do.
Yeah, I mean, I played baseball. I felt I was decent at baseball, but there came a time that, baseball kind of interfered with racing Friday nights, Saturday nights, because we were in Bartlesville, so we had to travel up here a lot, and I-44, Fort Cobb. So we did a lot of traveling, and there came a time that I had to make that decision, and I remember my mom setting me down and saying, we gotta choose one. If you want
Right.
to play baseball, that's fine. I mean, they never put pressure on me to, you
To
have
do
to
one,
race,
yeah.
right? And I could have, gone and played baseball, but my passion was racing.
Right.
I love it, and I knew my family had been doing it forever, so I just wanted to do it.
Like you said, no expectations on you and everything else, and things evolve and change a lot over the course of time. You've seen a lot of change in this sport,
Yeah.
in the industry as a whole, really. I mean,
Right.
let's look at everything. With you being a part of Smith Titanium and working over there with Stevie and the folks there, flashback to 16.
Right.
Flashback to the time that Amber Sawyer,
Right.
stops and wishes you a happy birthday. It seems like it was a different time, and you were kind of making your march up. Who were the drivers back then racing that? Because now I refer to Scott Sawyer as one of the greats, Kevin Bear, one of the greats,
Right.
Frank Flood, one of the greats, Chris Andrews.
Right.
Who were the Kevin Bears and Scott Sawyers of your younger years?
Man, I mean, like, there were a lot, and that's
And there was a lot of guys because the Tulsa Speedway was
Right.
huge, you know?
Right. We had Pete Frazier, which, I still believe is probably one of the best. I mean, a lot of guys will never be able to, meet him or see how he raced, and we have the memorial here, and I've won a lot of Pete Frazier memorials, and I was blessed to do so. But he was one of my biggest rivals. Because what's crazy is at the time I was kind of up and coming, and he was the veteran. He was,
Right.
hey, this is my house,
Yeah.
and so I was trying to come up, and I didn't care. I just wanted to win races,
Yeah.
And so we rivaled a lot. We had words a lot. We were kind of enemies, I guess, per se. And I was fortunate that I matured a lot there in racing, and we got to be where we were friends. We got to talk, and I feel like I got a lot of advice from him. And so I feel like I got his respect finally before he passed. But
What do you think? Sorry to interrupt, but what do you think like separated Pete Frazier from the other racers? Was it just his overall knowledge of everything, his attitude, his driving style? Was it a combination of many things?
Man, it was a combination. Like, he could do anything he wanted. I mean, like, he could make that car do a lot of different things, and he really could teach you lessons on the racetrack and make you feel like you did something wrong. Like, he could stuff you or if he wasn't happy with what you did or drove him a certain way, I mean, he would let you know. He would voice his opinion, but he had so much respect in the industry that he could get promoters to, change different things. He could get fellow racers he could get everybody together. He was kind of the voice,
Right.
of the whole micro scene, really, because People respected him. He was very knowledgeable, and he was personable. Like he really could talk to anybody, and he was your best buddy, you know. And
Yeah.
he would make you feel that way. He could go through there and get everybody in the pits, and, you know, he could make a change. And
Yeah.
you know, sometimes I feel like we need that now, just because a lot of guys don't stick together. You know, everybody's just kind of on their own. But that's one thing where I've seen racing evolve. Really is. Maybe there's not as much, you know, sportsmanship, friendlyship,
Camaraderie.
You know, I don't know the word, but yes, just he was just really, really good all around and everything.
I feel like the more and more that I hear about him and I learn about him is that he was overall just a badass.
Yeah.
Whether it was on the track, racing, working on a car,
Yeah.
or just, like you said, being a voice for the people and
Yeah.
being there. He was a racer for the racers.
Right.
And that's one thing that Christy McDougal has just kind of not really beat into my head, but that's the reasoning for the way she does things with Pete
Right.
Fraser Memorial.
Right.
And I agree with you in a sense. Like, I feel like we need that these days, but there's too many people losing track of what we're really doing here.
Right.
You know, everybody wants to be a professional.
Oh yeah.
Everybody wants to be that Keith Coons, to have that rent-a-ride, to have the business side of things,
Right.
which there's room for all of that. But at the same time, we need to kind of take a step back and realize that this is a hobby for 98.9% of the people that come out here on a basis. And that it's a business for the racetracks, not just us. I mean, I-44, Riverside Speedway,
Yes.
Sweet Springs, everybody. It doesn't matter if it's club ran or if it's, you know, personally owned. You got to remember that it's a business for those folks too, because they're putting a lot of stuff up on the lines for a lot of different things.
Yeah, the kids. So I think a lot of the transition is, you know, people see the Christopher Bells and, you know, the kids that have come up through the sport, and it's a massive rush to try to get their kid to that level as quickly as possible.
Right.
And that wasn't the case back then. Like, you know, I mean, we couldn't even get into the pits.
Right.
So you had to pay your dues. You had to, you know, do your time, and that was the NMMA. You know, they were structured where, you know, they had age groups. You had to run certain classes, and you couldn't move up. Not because
I don't care if you
just had the money to do
fast,
it. Right.
You're not running outlaw.
Right. I mean, just go out there and win every week if that's you know what you need to do. But you're not going to move up until
you reach that age.
Reach that age, right? And Pete was one of those that, you know, would make sure. Like, I think they had a committee back then, because I remember I was in the sportsman class, and I couldn't move up until, and it didn't matter how many races I won, you know, you just couldn't move up until everybody felt like it was safe enough for you to do so. You know, there was just that respect of, there's a lot of money in all this equipment, you know, everybody takes a lot of time to do it. It's not just liquid checkbooks nowadays, you know, I mean, you paid your dues, and
that's the way
how you get there.
That's the way you got there. Yeah. Right. That's something that often I find coming up in conversation is, well, they're moving him up too soon, or she's not ready for this, or she needs to get out of the class, or whatever the case may be. And I just wish that people would kind of take a step back and, you know, remember the olden days and how things used to be, because I feel like that was, the more and more you research it and the more you hear about it, those were kind of like the golden years. You know, that it meant something for you to finally be able to move up a class or something like that, and it gave you time to mature just a little bit. But at the same time, we look at it, and maybe it's the parents. You know, we never know. It's a lot of different aspects of it. Through the years, you've gone from you know, racing sportsmen to now you're an outlaw driver, and you're traveling the country, and you're getting to see a lot of different places. You're seeing a lot of different talent, whether it be behind the wheel or, you know, crew chief in or working on cars and everything else. And you've made a lot of friends over the years. You've got some funny stories down in the bank, I know, about teaching guys how to drive trailers. What was the first time that you had to pull a trailer yourself? And, like, was it something where, like, your dad coached you or somebody coached you, or were they like, hey, here's the keys, go fill her up?
Man, that's a good question. You know, I don't remember how I was taught. I just always remember driving a trailer.
Right.
But a good story, like a good one that I had. The Macs, they come out here and race every once in a while. Well, our families have been friends for a long time, and when we would travel to Visalia out there every year racing mini sprints back to when my dad, we became really good friends with them. And Bob Mack, the grandpa, he's passed now, but I remember the first time I ever drove a semi, was him, and we'd always go to their shop and race, and from his shop to the racetrack, and I was a little kid, and he, just one day said, "Here, get up in my lap," He shifted, and here I am, a little kid, I got this huge steering wheel, and to this day, I still tell that story. It was just, those are awesome memories.
Right.
And, it was just so cool being a kid, driving a semi to the racetrack, and now, pretty much everybody has one almost. So, that in driving those, when I got old enough to actually, we got one, and the first time I drove it out on the road, it's a little nerve-wracking, making corners, and it's sometimes hairy.
Through the years, you've raced a lot. You've turned a lot of laps, and you've been to a lot of places. What sets like Port City Array a difference from your other tracks that you've been to? Like, what sets this place apart from anywhere else?
Port has always been that milestone of, if you can win here, you pretty much go anywhere in the country. And I think that's one thing that really hasn't changed over the years a lot. It is just, it's so tough, and it's small. Your reaction times just have to be so on point. The track changes so much, and it doesn't really make big horsepower, and it kind of equalizes the cars a little bit more. So you really have to be, your driving style, or you really have to figure out how to, get around this place. And so it's just always been one of those tracks, and I think it always will be. I think Shane's doing a great job with this place. The facility's beautiful. You can really tell some improvements. The racing's good. The fans love it because it's just so close, and you really never know who's going to win, know. But it's, there's a lot of racetracks that I really like, per se. I like SIR, and I love to go to California and Sweet Springs. There's a lot of nice racetracks that I really like to go race at. But I'd say there's none tougher than this place here.
You said you never know who's going to win here. There's been numerous times, just in my, I've only probably been around the micro rankings, let's just say 7-8 years. But the first couple of times that I come up here to Port City Raceway, back in the Aaron Lemons days, the Outlaw class was phenomenal. And watching you and Bayer and Andrews, like you guys coming 3 wide off of 4, how many times, how many instances was there that type of stuff happened? Was that like an almost guaranteed every week type of thing where you almost feel like you're going to win it or wear it?
Oh yeah,
because if I remember right, I feel like I see a picture of you almost in the flag stand one night on the front stretch, and like Marcus is like back like this with the checkers in the air. I forget who the other car is. It may have been Andrews.
Yeah, I think it was. I think, and I was mad at the time, obviously, but, I didn't know what happened. But that's the thing about this place. It's tight racing. Everybody wants to win. Everybody wants to win at Port City. And sometimes you just race to win. You don't use your best judgment. And when you put that helmet on, we all, there's really not very many friends when you're by yourself inside that car. All you see is that checkered flag, and you want to win.
That's what you're going for.
Yeah, and a lot of times you got to eat a lot of crow afterwards and do some apologizing, and that's the good thing about racing. As long as everybody seems to be pretty fair, because it always comes around. You might give some, you might get some, and you have to have that realization. Nobody's really out here to hurt anybody. Nobody's coming after you and
with a vengeance.
Right. yeah, it's really passionate. I mean, you're
Yeah.
a passionate sport that you just kind of selfish. I mean,
Yeah.
I want to win.
Right.
I mean, so
Was there ever a time, whenever you were racing, that you almost gave a little bit because you were like, I don't want this guy coming to the shop on Monday. You know, I don't want to tear this guy's stuff up. Or, you know, did you ever find yourself being more conservative as you got older, knowing that the business was part of what was putting a roof over your head and everything else?
Definitely. I mean, I caught myself, and that's probably when I realized that, you know, it's probably time to slow down a little bit, I guess. Is just, like I said, you get heated. You know, I mean, no matter what position I was in, I still wanted to win. Because like I said, I put that pressure on myself. I wanted to win. I felt like I had to win to sell cars. So you make some decisions, and then the older I got, you know, I had kids. I have a wife. Got to make a house payment. So you start, when those things start going through your head, you're not focusing 100% on winning that race.
Right.
So, and there was times I thought, oh, you know, I mean, I don't want that guy mad at me, you know,
Right.
because I mean, I just sold him a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
you know. So, there was a lot of times I remember thinking, man, I wish I could go back and Dad could own this place. And
Yeah.
I was 16. I didn't care.
Yeah.
You know, he could deal with them later.
Right.
So, but yeah, and that's the bad part about the racing side, because you can't explain that. You know, being in the position I was in, you can't explain that to a guy. Well, like,
No.
hey, I mean, I want to win just as bad, you know,
yeah.
but come buy some more crap for me. You
Yeah.
know? So it was tough. And I found myself a lot in that position, and you know, I didn't feel like it was the right place to be in,
Right.
you know, at the time. So
Through the years, cars have changed a lot. And I mean, from different manufacturers coming into play, to, I mean, going from a pan-hard bar to a 4-bar car to, you know, do you want to run coils on all fours and everything else? How do you feel like just the Sawyers have evolved and changed throughout those years? I mean, to keep up with, because let's face it, what was it, 5-6 years ago, D1 was like a brand new
right.
deal in this area. And whenever they come in rolling into town, you know, Matt Moore starts clicking off a couple of wins, Chebester's in a pace, or whatever the case may be. I forget it all. You know, I'm not a big statistician, but there's a bunch of change that came pretty quick.
Right. And, you know, and I feel like, like you said, things have evolved a lot. You know, back when my dad and grandpa did it, I mean, everybody did their own thing. You know, everybody worked on their own cars, made their own cars, because that's all you had to do. And so it's evolved just like the whole world itself has. You know, everybody wants something right now. Walmart, you know, I want to pick this up off the shelf and get it now because I don't have time.
Right.
I can't bolt it together, whatever. But I feel like my success and my parents and the business success was just based a lot on the KISS rule. You know, we kept it simple. We didn't make a whole lot of wholesale changes for a lot of years. You know, I mean, and we kept the same thing and just really zoned in on it and fine-tuned it to make the car better. And it was good on, like, here, port, and smaller tracks, slick tracks, you know. And then Jake and the D1, it was really kind of back then, it was more like, oh, it's a West Coast car, you know, on heavy racetracks, big curbs, you know, because it was a freer car. That was the stigma back then, you know, whatever. And it's just like anything. The more guys you have running your product, and, you know, there's a lot of good guys out there, a lot of good racers, you know, and it started coming this way. And technology's changed. You know, they were working on their stuff, making it better. And shock packages have changed, you know, wings have changed, tires have changed. I mean, there's a lot of changes wholesale across the market. So it got to the point where everybody's cars are good. I mean, there's a lot of good guys, a lot of good drivers in them, a lot of good builders out there. So, you know, it just got to where I think that's where we are right now. Like, there's so many equal cars out there
that you're always looking for that one slight advantage, that one millisecond that difference of, am I going to be able to hit the bottom sooner, or am I going to be able to be level across the whole board?
And it bases off of customer service side too. I mean, you got to be able to get it, and the online store has changed a lot of different things, because people want to shop in their underwear, obviously, and so because life is busy, kids and sports and there's just a lot of stuff going on. So
and then you made a good mention there of people want it now and they want it already done for them. That's kind of a good segue into where the sport's going now, where I see it projecting out, the next few years. And something that you guys have done with Sawyer Innovation is bringing that knowledge to the people that don't necessarily have the time or the knowledge to do it. There's a lot of parents out there that have busted their butts to be able to afford nice things for their kids, and not to say that their kids, you get the saying, well, if my daddy had that much money, I'd be just fine too. Well, your daddy doesn't. This kid's daddy went out and busted his butt and started a company and built it up, or, had some investment come through, or somebody left him some, whatever the case may be.
Right.
But while you or XYZ is over here in the shop every night learning it and researching it, this guy is over here researching how to get water down a tube faster than this guy over here is getting water down the tube. So kind of talk about that and the transition that you're seeing as far as now people are like, look, I don't know how to change a sprocket. Can I bring my car to you and have you change my sprocket?
Well, and again, it's everybody wants the best for their kids, and everybody wants nice stuff. And so, the world's busy. So I believe everybody's really trying to make their lives better, right? So they've got to research. They've got to bust their butt to do whatever they want to make their family money. And so they may have to focus on whatever their career may be, or school, college, whatever. But, their kids they may see the Christopher Bells, and they may see the kids that are coming up through there, and their kids might want to race, but they don't know anything about it. They're focused on their family and making money for their family and household, but they want to make their kids happy. So, I feel like, we're bringing a little bit of that knowledge to it, because there's a lot of history there, and I can't get rid of that knowledge. So, that's all I've ever known, like we said. So, we're just trying to provide a service that will do maintenance for them, and we'll help them setup wise, learn the car, maybe learn how to race, and they won't have to try to relearn how to work on a race car and make their kid better and try to get to that level, because everybody wants that quicker.
Yeah.
So we'll just see what happens.
That's where we are in the business life and everything else. There's a little bit more to Scott Sawyer than just racing.
Yeah.
Just a little bit. A
little bit.
You work all day in racing, then you go home and work all night in racing, seems like. You've got quite the family, and quite the support group. 16 years old is whenever you finally got the digits.
Yep.
And you waited for 2 days.
You got to play, hard to get. You can't.
Even at 16, man.
Seriously,
Do you remember the first time you saw Amber? Were you like, oh my gosh?
No, seriously, that was on my birthday. The first time I even remotely remember even knowing who she was. So, but I do remember that day.
That is great. That is fantastic. So your first date, you go to an Outlaws race. Was that the deal that you were like, oh yeah, this is it?
Man, I'm going to, throw myself under the bus, because she was kind when she talked about our first date. So I was naive, young. I'm 16, 17 years old. All I cared about was race cars, honestly. Right. I eat, sleep, and breathe race cars. So, but I like girls, and she paid some attention, so I was like, hey, so I was just like, oh yeah, you want to go to this race? World Outlaws or Tulsa Speedway. And so she was like, yeah, sure. And So we went to the race, and she tells the story a lot, and I get mad at her, but I'm going to tell them myself. So after the races, it was like time to leave, and I was like, bye, see you later. She went to her car by herself, and she cried, and she called her mom, and I was really a jerk back then. I was clueless, man. I didn't think if I was to do that now, she would kill me.
Yeah,
but
thank goodness she gave you a second shot.
Look, I've had way more than 2 shots. I'm gonna tell you, she's given me a lot of grace over the years, and I can't be. She's done so much for me, and I'm blessed with all my kiddos and Amber and my parents. I've really, really been lucky. Just God has provided such a great life for me and family, and I've just really been really blessed.
So you talk about the kiddos. You've got quite the fleet.
I do.
Like a wide variety. I kind of look at them. I'm like, there's no way she's a Sawyer. There's no way you're a Sawyer. And then she goes out and she wills. She's getting really solid. I remember the first time she came out for practice, and I was like, "Oh Lord, Scott," and you're like, "Oh Lord, self, what are we doing?" And then now it's starting to click. It's starting to click. And then you got Drew, who's just a maniac. He can do anything.
Right.
Anything. Doesn't he do 3D printing?
No, Blaine's the one that did the 3D printing. Yeah, Drew is in track right now, but he's just like, that all-around athlete.
Yeah.
Anything he does, he's good at and tries. And
he's one of those kids that I hated whenever I was younger because it's like he touches it and it's golden.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody loves him.
Kind of like my older brother that never watches a show. My brother, hey, real quick story for you guys since we're like 35 minutes into this interview. My brother absolutely hates racing, but he watches every single Haas Talks that I post. And you want to know why? Because he's the one that wrote and sang and produced the intro music to Haas Talks.
Nice.
So he'll watch the first 30 seconds of every episode, but you know what? I appreciate it because that counts as one view on my YouTube.
Well, there you go, yeah.
Hey, 30 seconds and it's in.
Maybe you should play it halfway through.
I'm telling you. So then he watches it all up. But no, my brother's one of those talented dudes that anything he touches is just golden. Blaine's a big musician guy who did the marching band for the Bixby Spartans. Spartans.
Bixby Spartans. Yeah, he was lead of the band. He did great. Drum major.
Now he's at OU.
Yep.
Successful college student.
Yep. He's
as
doing
far
great.
as we know.
As far as yeah, as far as he lets us know. Yeah. So he's very successful. He's worked part-time job I think at Boyd's Racing Engines there in Norman. So he's still.
How cool is that?
Yeah. So he works with actually. Sylvester.
Yep, Lynn.
Yep,
Lynn's over there.
Yeah. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
And then Colton. Colton is he's coming to his own.
He is. He's
learning the patience. I feel
very
like.
much so. Like Colton is very dedicated as far as he's out there. Every time I'm out there at the shop, he's a lot of help to me.
And he's always right there for Kaylee too.
He is.
I can see it like immediately. He's like, boom.
Right.
He's always got her back.
Both of those boys, and all 3 of those boys, really. She's well protected if anybody ever messes with her. So she's got a good group.
So those are the kids. One thing that I talked to Amber on, and so there's things that I want to ask people and I want to talk to people about, and I just don't feel like it's the place for the media to talk about it. There's just certain instances. There's been a documentary released, a little docuseries released Monday, and they had a guy and they interviewed him and they brought up some things that I was like, that's just one of those subjects. I just because I'm a part of it,
right?
I feel like I'm engulfed in it. But I talked to Amber about her battle with cancer, and I wanted to get your perspective of it. Being the husband, the dad. What was that like for you, your partner of so many years, the person that was like your sidekick,
right.
your all of all, that always had your back, and you had her back.
Right.
I'm not saying saying that she was all you, and you took away from it, but for that time frame where it was a fight, and it wasn't just her fight. It wasn't just your fight with her. It wasn't just the family fight; it was the community fight because we all rallied. What was it like for you through your eyes? Her telling you, breaking the news, and then having to figure out how you're going to tell the kids, and just how you make it through all of that while keeping up with everything else as far as life and business and racing.
Man, I mean, a lot of it's still a blur, really. And I think your body just kind of goes into that fight or flight mode, and you do things just because you have to. So I remember her telling me the news, and it was kind of surreal. Like, just, this isn't happening. And it's one of those things, like, as a man, we are a fix-it, and that's the way I've always been my whole life. Like, I want to fix it. I want to fix it now. So the emotional side of it, and, the battle that she went through, not only with the cancer and what I walked through her with, but her internal emotional battle, and she still fights some today, I still struggle with because I can't see it. Really, there's just nothing we can do to fix it. So, and I had to learn a lot through that process, is just be there. Don't try to fix it so much, because I'm hands-on, if it's broke, I'm going to fix it. So I had to really learn a lot about life and what really it meant.
Kind of checking your emotions
Right.
to take care of what
Right.
she had to have.
And she, honestly, she was a badass. I mean, she fought that like nobody I would ever think, would have. And like I said, there was days we had, there weren't the greatest fight, but she started out, she had a plan, because luckily when we were younger, she kind of worked in that field as we were younger. And so we had talks as young married, if this ever happens, this is what I'm going to do. And that's what happened when we were diagnosed and she was diagnosed. That's exactly what she did. She already knew her plan. She put it into motion. And with God's blessing, everything kind of lined up. The doors opened that needed to, and so we caught it early.
You just said something that just hit me hard. You didn't say whenever she was diagnosed. You said whenever we were diagnosed.
Yeah, it was. We've been a team, through that whole thing, and so it wasn't her fight. It was our fight, and I mean that now. It really brings a lot of things into perspective. Really, like I said before, I was blessed growing up into this sport and met a lot of people and have a lot of friends. But you just really think outside, like, these are just friends on the weekend, Like, you don't think much about it and you go do your normal life. But you build relationships with these people, and when they see you're in need, it's a fight.
Yeah.
And they'll fight to the end. And I realized that as well. Like, God put me in that position, to meet all these people and whatever I did, win races or grow the company and got to meet more people. But that was all for a reason, obviously. So those people paid me back tenfold, just with their friendship, the camaraderie, the support that they gave my wife and family and food. It was unreal, really. So it was a battle, no doubt. And I feel every time I hear, it just seems like you hear it more and more now, people going through that battle, and I can really relate now, because it's like, I feel that pain. Yeah.
You feel like it made you guys stronger as, like, just not only a husband and wife, but as a family?
Oh, 10,000%. Yeah.
10,000%.
Definitely. It grew us. And like I said, it put a lot of things in perspective. Life is really short, really. And just like racing here, I've thought a lot about that over the years, and I've had to keep my check. Everybody wants to win. Everybody wants to win on the racetrack, and things get heated, and that's all you think about is, I got to win. But at the end of the day, you look at it, and I'm going to come back because there's so many good people here, and somebody might need that from Amber and I or our family someday. They may need someone to lean on, and you know, they need somebody for that. So there's a lot of friendship here, and that's what needs to be realized at the end of the day, I guess. And it's not all about winning,
right?
So,
and sometimes it's more than what meets the eye.
Oh yeah.
You've been through a lot. You've been around a lot. You see a lot of kids coming into the sport now from quarter midgets or, making the move from junior sprint to restrictor and on up the ladder, and even going on to midget and sprint car racing now, kids that you watched grow up here around Port City Raceway. What would be like some key pieces of advice, or maybe just a simple saying that would, like, somebody could just hit home? Like, what would be some advice that you could give to somebody that is making their move through the motorsports world or making their entry into the motorsports world?
Man, really, I mean, like Amber hit home on it a lot too. It's just patience, and I'm just going to take that a little bit further. Is just enjoy the ride, enjoy the moment, enjoy the people along the way. Don't take those small opportunities for granted. There's a lot of times people are just trying to get to the top so fast, and everybody wants to be on top, no doubt. But sometimes you get to the top and you're by yourself, so you really got to enjoy that ride to get there and try to scoop up as many people and friends as you can, because you're going to need them someday, really. So
there you go. Man, there's no way to better than to end that on that. Scott, thank you so much.
Yes,
Race
sir.
fans, like he said, enjoy the ride and enjoy Haas Talks every week on Flow Racing. Thanks, guys.